USC can still compete without JuJu Watkins.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Kalia Butler. Joined alongside me is Sophia Jones. Thank you guys for tuning in with us. Happy Monday. I don't know where you guys are, but I'm in Chicago and it is snowing today. So unfortunate series of events. I know Sophia is in California living her best life, being a California girl, as Katy Perry may say. But what we're going to go over today is a shakeup in the AP poll. We're going to go over what we've seen from UConn and why they remain so dominant, especially with Sarah Strong and Azzi Fudd. But first, a really exciting game between number 18 USC and number 9 NC State. Now, we are already really impressed by NC State in their win against Tennessee. But USC came in, and we were both talking about it, Sophia. We weren't sure what this team was going to look like without JuJu Watkins, but they've made it very clear that they are here to compete and they can do it without JuJu still. She's on the sidelines coaching.
Exactly. Like you said, us California girlies are just living it up right now because USC really is looking strong. NC State, especially, they were riding on a high, having beat the number 8 team, Tennessee, with last week's AP poll. But USC just came in there and did exactly what they needed to do. And it's not a player for player swap, but when you're looking at the star power that you're losing in JuJu Watkins, I think they found that in Jazzy Davidson. She was a number 1 recruit in the class of 2025, and she looked incredible in that game. I thought that was what you could consider her breakout performance. She finished with 21 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 blocks, and 3 steals. She has such great length. She's very lanky, but 3-level scorer that can really rise up and create her own shots. Almost a little bit similar to the pull-up style of a Brianna Stewart, maybe, but she has great court vision to accompany that. She's essentially a big guard, but she wasn't super efficient in the first half, and I think that just shows the way that she came out of the locker room in the second to really put the team on her back, the maturity of a freshman to be able to do that and get her team the win. She had the game-winning layup to put her team up by 1, but she was incredible in that performance.
We have been talking about this depth that we're able to see from teams. So it's kind of a next woman up mentality. Obviously, you know, JuJu is out. You have this really great recruit that is coming in, and she just has to kind of learn on the fly, which is so impressive that she was able to kind of take down this NC State team, who obviously, as you mentioned, just came off we're riding on a high of beating Tennessee. But you also have to talk about London Jones, too, who was a really great spark coming off the bench. Overall, they just looked like they can go deep into their bench this season. And I think that's going to be so crucial and so beneficial when you say it's not necessarily player for player, but you have these really strong guards like a Davidson, like a Jones, who are young but producing so well really early on that you can just hope that they can continue to ride on this and just keep improving every game, because they're just getting started. Imagine what they're going to look like once they hit mid-season to end of the season.
Exactly. And just more on London Jones. She was transferred from UCLA, so she just went from one LA school to the other. But Cara Dunn was in some foul trouble against NC State. And so London Jones came off the bench and really provided a great relief to her. She was knocking down a 3-pointer. She went 4 of 9 from the perimeter. She finished with 19 points. Like I said, that was a huge spark on the bench, off the bench. But USC really was looking very balanced. I felt like offensively, every single person was a weapon, either in the open floor where bigs are rim running and their guards are just making great kick ahead passes. And they do a very either 5-out or 4-out 1-in style of play, which allows a lot of room for these players to create. And again, 1 through 5, anyone can step out to the perimeter and attack and just create their own buckets or create opportunities for other people. So USC is looking like a pretty balanced squad, like we've been saying. Lindsey Gottlieb been doing an outstanding coaching job, because that's not easy when you have a player who your offense was pretty much surrounded by in JuJu last season, and you have to scrap that and start a little bit from fresh. But you saw that balance in their performance. Even defensively, everyone was just putting their head down, sprinting back in transition. NC State was a team that really liked to play fast. And so they forced them to play in the half court a lot, just getting ahead of the ball, making sure that they stop ball, protect the rim. But yeah, it was just, they have some really great, versatile athletes.
Yeah, you mentioned exactly what I was going to add too. We talk about the offensive production that USC has, and you questioned that a little bit with the loss of JuJu, but you see what they have brought in, and you're like, okay, this seems like they're in a comfortable space. But defensively, especially London Jones, I mean, she really set the tone with the defense. Not only was she a spark offensively, but also defensively, as you mentioned, really making sure that NC State had to play half court sets. And she just set the tone with just relentless pressure, especially against NC State's ball handlers. And that was something that was so impressive to me, where you see that they are developing two-way players on this roster. And I think that's what makes you so excited about them. And I just believe they're going to continue to climb the polls. And obviously we saw JuJu loving it all on the sidelines. Obviously there's always clips of her, ESPN, whatever it may be, her just coaching up her teammates and stuff like that. But you can tell like she was excited even from the bench. I know she wants to be out there with them, but her presence obviously means a bunch either way.
Exactly. And as someone that was in that position where you're on the sideline because of a torn ACL, just always staying engaged and being enthusiastic, I think, is just a huge testament to JuJu and making sure that you're still a part of that team. And there are still things that you can do to overall help that squad. Just because you're not on the floor doesn't mean you can be ineffective. But yeah, I think that USC's guard play really came to play because NC State, they thrive with their backcourt between Zoe Brooks and Zam Jones. Zoe Brooks, she did her thing. She's been having a really great start to the season. 24 points, 11 rebounds. So as a point guard, 11 rebounds, props to her, and 6 assists. So she has those shifty handles, can get downhill. But again, that USC backcourt really did a good job of not letting her get as many other teammates involved in that half court offense. Zam Jones was in foul trouble, so they put a lot of pressure on her and forced her to be taken out of the game. She only played 20 minutes, and she missed 2 free throws at the end of the game that would have put NC State up by 3. And that's a tough situation to be in when you're constantly being taken in and out of a game because you're in foul trouble, not really able to develop a rhythm. But those backcourt guards, really, as they go, NC State goes. And their bigs inside as well. Tilda Trigger has been a great player for them, finished with 8 points, 11 rebounds. And Camille Pierre, 10 points, 18 rebounds. If there was one area that NC State dominated more, I would say it was in that rebounding battle. They won it 54-40. Mm-hmm. So at least and usually when you see that kind of discrepancy, your team is favored. However, it didn't work out for NC State, but I think that's still a positive sign you can look towards.
Yeah, and we're talking about a balanced attack for USC. You obviously just named 4 players for NC State who were either in double digits or close to double digits. They had a relatively balanced attack themselves, but USC was honestly just in a rhythm. Everybody was on it, and I think their defense really cracked down against NC State, which made them collapse a little bit, as you mentioned. But you have to give credit to what NC State was capable of doing, obviously riding that high from Tennessee. But even going up against USC that looks the way it does and maybe isn't ranked as high as they actually should be, they're still in a good position for once they hit conference play.
Yeah, and I think the togetherness of that group was really reflected in how they finished down the stretch. I have just a couple of little tidbits for the end late game because USC only won by 1 point. USC finished the game on an 8-0 run over the last 3.5 minutes. NC State was over their last 5 field goals, also accompanying a 4-minute scoring drought. And in those 4 minutes, they had 5 turnovers. So for a new squad, relatively, adding in a player like Jazzy Davidson and London Jones, when those are the players that are closing for you, and to close a game in that type of dramatic fashion is a really good sign for what is in store this season for the Trojans.
We're excited to continue watching them play, but we have to go talk about our UConn Huskies and what they did against Florida State. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Well, UConn remaining dominant and showing why they were the 2025 national champions. They actually unveiled their championship banner on Sunday against Florida State, which they came away with a 99-67 win. It was not as competitive as I was anticipating it to be, but we also have to remember Florida State is losing a Tanaya Latson, who was their leading scorer, who was the NCAA's leading scorer. That's a lot of offensive production that you're missing out on. But what we have to focus in on is Azzi Fudd and Sarah Strong, because they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. We already knew that coming into this season, but now it is just becoming more and more apparent. Azzi Fudd led with 23 points, shooting 60% from the field and 42% from three-point range. Sarah Strong, 21 points and 9 rebounds. Something that I thought was really funny after the game, head coach Gino Auriemma said, "I would say that whenever we're drawing up a play in the huddle, one of the first 2 words out of my mouth is either Azzi or Sarah." So they are going to be involved one way or another and what we're doing. And a lot of times it's probably going to be both of them. This is why Gino was smiling at the beginning of the season, because he knew what he was working with. And he said, no, we're good. Like, I'm happy with what we got going on right now. I have Azzi, I have Sarah. Life is good. And we're ready to start the season.
Exactly. As much as it can be difficult to coach talent because there is always that argument, at the end of the day, I have to imagine to a certain extent you are on cruise control when you have the level or the caliber of players like an Azzi Fudd or Sarah Strong, especially when they cover both the front court and back court. I mean, that's just such a dominant duo. I continue to be impressed by Sarah Strong. She's making that case for AP Player of the Year that some people predicted her that she was going to be. 21 points, an efficient 21 points. She was 7 of 10 field goals, those 9 rebounds, 4 assists as well. Her vision and her ability to feel what's around her and recognize plays not as they're transpiring, but see that next movement ahead is not something you see very often in one, a forward, and two, a sophomore in college. She's just really orchestrating that UConn defense or UConn offense so well. And I mentioned her defense. She finished with 2 blocks, 2 steals. So she's really becoming such a strong two-way player. And then for Azzi. We know what she can do, but to continue to see her be that leading field goal taker for the Huskies, stretch out her range to the perimeter, continue to do that. She as well finished with 5 assists because she's such a gravitational player. She knows where to find her other teammates and they move really well off ball. But this UConn team is really looking like the women's college basketball team in the country to beat.
Absolutely. And when you think of Azzi Fudd, and we obviously know she's known for being a 3-point shooter. When you're shooting 42, almost, it was 42.9%. So we'll give her a round up. She was basically shooting 43% from 3-point range. I don't know if everyone has seen the video where they basically time how quick Azzi's releases. I can't remember the exact number in my head, but it's like barely like milliseconds, in my opinion. Like once that ball is in her hand, not even a blink of an eye. Like you literally can't bat your eyes before the ball is out of her hand. She is constantly ready. And I was watching this video of Azzi's parents, who were both hoopers, and they basically made her like put up all these shots consistently. So she has been like, they have been creating this monster since a little kid. And that's why she has one of the most efficient shots. That's why Gino is a princess, like considers her a princess of the team. She has such beautiful form. It is, as soon as it's in her hands, it's also out of her hands. And she's so incredibly efficient. And you mentioned that front court, back court duo between her and Sarah Strong. Sarah Strong said that her and Fudd just know each other's game very well, which is also incredibly impressive because they were only playing with each other for a year. And they have combined for 86 of UConn's 178 points, or about 50% of the offense in just 2 games this season. That is outrageous. You have to obviously consider the caliber of teams that they're playing, but Florida State is a very strong program still. So if you have Strong and Fudd already putting up 50% of your offense, as you mentioned, Gino is in cruise control. And that's why he said his first words are going to be Azzi or Sarah, because that is a majority of your offense already.
That's knowing your strengths, and you got to respect it. And this is just back-to-back wins that UConn is just obliterating ACC teams. That's still a Power Four conference.
Mhm.
So they're not beating some of these other mid-majors or even low majors. They're going up against solid competition. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they'll do against some more ranked opponents. But even to elaborate more what you were talking about with Azzi Fudd's shot, most shooters have a little dip in their shot. So they'll catch the ball, bring it to about where their belly button is, and then release. It's what a lot of players do. Steph Curry does it, Klay Thompson. So some of the best shooters of all time have that dip. But what makes Azzi Fudd's shot so crisp is that she has a micro dip. She catches it, maybe centers it, doesn't bring it too far down. She just catches, centers, and puts it up.
Mhm.
And that is incredibly difficult to do. You have to have a higher level of strength because you're not, when you dip, that's when you get your rhythm, you get your legs and your base into that shot more. But she's just pretty much mostly shooting with her upper body because, again, that lower body is just already set. And yeah, a lot of testament to her parents and her for getting up all those shots in the gym. But you can tell when you look at Azzi Fudd that she is a strong girl. And that is where that shot and that efficiency and the fact that it never changes. The mechanics never change. I think that is just huge and why you are seeing her some efficient shooting so far this season.
That's a great point. The mechanics never change. And I think we all knew we were in trouble when you literally saw the size of her bicep triple from last season to this season. And I said, oh, she's been in the weight room. And that's where you get to the point, because usually we see a lot of players, especially when you're starting to get fatigued, they rely heavily on getting back into their legs. Azzi does not do that. That's why when I saw the size of her biceps going into the season, I said, you guys, it's over for all of you. I hate to tell you. Her shot is literally not moving from right here because because she has so much upper body strength, she just is overall an incredibly strong player. But we also have to give credit to what FSU was capable of doing, because they still are, as you mentioned, Power Four, strong program. Sol Williams led Florida State with 14 points. Jasmine Shavers and Allie Quebec also chipped in with 11 points. They showed that they're a team that really likes to play fast. They've done that for years, ever since I've watched them be in the ACC as well when I was at Syracuse. They're always a very solid program. Anybody that has to go up against UConn is dealing with a difficult day. I mean, it's UConn. We've had to go up against UConn multiple times when I was a manager at DePaul. I'm not even on the court, and I was stressed for our players. Like, it's not easy to go to Gamble Pavilion and play. It's not easy to go to a neutral site and play UConn. So credit to Seminoles being able to have a pretty solid showing from a couple of players.
Definitely. And even looking with the way that Duke suffered their early season loss against Baylor, the way that Louisville got dominated in similar fashion to FSU, the ACC isn't looking as locked up as I think it was predicted. And FSU still, I definitely think, has a chance because it's looking pretty open.
Yes, but coming up, we have a little bit of a shakeup in the AP poll, and we're going to get into it.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Well, the top teams have remained consistent in the AP poll, but we all know why. UConn Huskies are comfortable at number 1 still. South Carolina at number 2, UCLA 3, Texas 4, LSU 5, Oklahoma in that 6th spot. Baylor moved up significantly after, well, I don't want to say significantly, but Baylor moved up a spot within the past couple of between this past week. And then USC is also made a big push after their win as well. They're in the 8th spot. Maryland 9, North Carolina State as at 10, so they dropped a little bit. Sophia, who has maybe surprised you most in some of this movement with the AP poll, or how they have ranked it this week?
I think Baylor's entrance into the top 10 at that 7 seed, that's up 9 spots to where they were last week. That feels pretty deserved. They had that great opening win against Duke in Paris. Talia Scott has proven herself to be one of the premier transfer pickups so far in their 2 wins this week. She had 24 points against Duke and then 29 points in that subsequent win. So she's getting some offense going for that team. And then USC, they are 2-0. They had their first win against one of a mid-majors, second win, we just talked about it, with NC State. And when you beat already a top 10 team, especially when you consider NC State was coming off of a win versus Tennessee, I think their entrance into the top 10 is as well deserved. I was surprised to see that North NC State did slip 1 spot down, because they did have a great showing in that win against Tennessee. So I found that a little interesting. Tennessee is another team that slipped a little bit. They went down 4 spots into number 12. Tennessee might have some things that they need to work out a little bit. We talked about their loss versus NC State, but they then won their 2 games. They beat ETSU and UT Martin. But UT Martin, it was a pretty close game the majority of the time. They only ended up winning by 9 points, 72-61. So I think that they can figure stuff out, but that might take a little bit of time. So I understand their drop.
Yeah, I think for it's kind of consistent of what we've seen. Obviously, it's also really early in the season, so these shift back and forth so quickly, just dependent on obviously how the outlook of just a game looks. But for the most part, everything looks realistic. To continue down the list, Ole Miss is at 13, Michigan is at 14, Duke is in that 15 spot now. Iowa State is in the 16 spot, TCU 17, Notre Dame 18. Then it goes Vanderbilt, Oklahoma State, Iowa, Louisville, who dropped a couple of points. Kentucky, Michigan State, and Washington has made the top 25 now as well. What do you think about that, Sophia?
Washington was a preseason others receiving votes, how they had that little section towards the bottom. They're at the top of that. And with Richmond's loss to Texas, that bumped Richmond out of the top 25. And then you saw the entrance of the Huskies. The Huskies beat Seattle U 90-43 in their season opener. That 47-point blowout was the largest margin of victory in the series history. So they're looking pretty strong. Sometimes it is difficult to tell, though, again, with these, just with the parity between some of these teams facing each other. But I think when it's still really early in the season to tell, because I consider a Louisville who dropped 2 spots because they lost to UConn, and it's still, or a Notre Dame who they dropped 3 spots, but they won all of their games. So it's kind of a give or take game where, okay, who has proven more at this point, essentially?
Who do you think will, this might be a clear answer, who do you think will remain on top within the AP poll for the season, but also who do you think is a sneaky team that can continue their rise?
UConn, I still think, is that team to beat. I don't see that changing much. I will be very interested for USC's next game will be against South Carolina. So that's going to be a big, big matchup for both teams. Honestly, that could potentially have some ramifications. But in terms of a team that could continue to climb, mm, mm, it's just so hard to tell, like I said, because with these some of these teams' schedules, but for the way that Duke slipped, I actually do think that they could rewrite their history a little bit and gain some ground again.
I think, and that's why I said it was maybe a clear answer. UConn just seems a little bit too dominant right now to feel like they're going to have any major slippages anytime soon, if you will. I think I'm most curious to see a couple of the spots just right below them. South Carolina, UCLA, Texas, and LSU. I think those 4 teams will shift around a lot this season. I'm most curious to see, honestly, UCLA. I think they can be really high contenders next to UConn. I'm not doubting South Carolina by any means. I would never doubt Dawn Staley in my life. But I really think that UCLA could even climb above South Carolina. Obviously, that is just one position to move. But with South Carolina just losing some of their pieces, Chloe Kitts going out so close to the season, and we could tell during some of their games so far already, obviously they're going to remain dominant against like a Bowling Green or something, but they still had a decent amount of things to work on as they approach their own conference play. I'm also excited to see Texas continue their dominance as well. We've talked about, them being able to hit the transfer portal, just what that team looks like this season as well. I think those are ones that are going to more closely approach UConn as the season continues.
I would agree. And especially with some of the tests that a couple of these teams have coming up. Mentioned South Carolina playing USC on Saturday. UCLA plays Oklahoma tonight, so we could be seeing a little bit of stuff going on there. Very excited for that game. Texas, they schedule a pretty solid non-conference schedule, so those provide opportunities for more tests to potentially rise. But for a team like LSU, unless those squads above them commit major grievances, I guess I would say, it will be difficult for them to really rise up until SEC play because that non-conference schedule is a little bit weaker.
I agree with you. Very excited for that UCLA Oklahoma game. That's going to be a good one that we will be able to recap tomorrow. So make sure that you watch Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Kalia Butler. Alongside me, Sophia Jones. We will see you tomorrow.